Yo, what's up, good people, and welcome to another episode of Keep It Thorough, where we give you the real behind business, health, money, and self development, and introduce engaging concepts to help you perform better in all areas of life. I'm your host, Cedric Lavelle, joined by my comrade and counterpart, E Double.
E double, yo. So, we back to y'all this week with episode 76. 76 of them things.
76.
And the title of this episode is You versus You, the battle between who you are and who you want to be. So, without further ado, let's go and kick this thing off, Sid.
Yes, sir. So you versus you, the battle between who you are and who you want to be.
It's a dope,
Obviously,
dope title, too. You versus You, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that is a dope title. It's a battle, right? You versus you every day. Every day. The battle between who you see in the mirror. Who do you want to be? Who are you progressing towards? What goals do you have? What do you want to accomplish? It's a you versus you mentality. And we hear that often, right? You versus you. But what really does that mean to a lot of people?
Yeah.
What does you versus you mean? How can that resonate with you? And what I've realized through my journey of personal growth and transitioning to become a better version of myself, that's exactly what it is. How can you become a better version of yourself? How can you challenge yourself every day to get out of the position that you're in now, no matter how good it is or how bad it is, to progress towards something better, to be a better version of yourself? Because to be better is continual. It's a never-ending process. It's something that you're contributing to every day, and it's always going to be a challenge. And in many instances, or well, really in all instances, there's always going to be this battle where certain things will demand your energy, your attention, and demand your time. And you have to be very aware of what specifically you're giving your energy, your attention, and your time to. Because in many cases, what can potentially happen is, though you're wanting to move towards something and become better at something or thrive at something, there's always going to be this other side that wants you to stay comfortable with where you are. There's always going to be these things that are playing within your mind where it's like, you're good. Why do you have to do that? Why do you have to give this much effort? Why do you have to give this time? Why do you have to make these particular sacrifices? Do you even think that you're worthy of this? Do you even think that you can accomplish this? And so that internal battle that you experience, it's almost like tug of war.
Yeah.
It's pulling you from one side to the other. One side is saying, hey, go for that dream. Go for the goal. Go for the vision. Put your best foot forward. Put the time in. Don't play yourself. Don't down yourself. You're worthy of it. You can have all of these things. You got what it takes. Everything you have is everything you need, right? But you also have the other side that says, nah, that ain't it, dog. You ain't got it in you. You know what I'm saying?
No, and that tug of war is a great analogy, right? To really explain that duality and that journey to self-development, right? So I think it's important to understand that internal conflict and what it really looks like, right? So when you say you versus you, like what does that mean, right? So it's on one side who you currently are, right? And then on the other side is who you aspire to be, right? And then what does that tug of war look like, right? Well, you dealing with your comfort level or that exciting unknown, right? Like where that place that you want to be that feels good, gives you the little warm fuzzies on the inside, but you really don't know how you're going to get there, right? And the crazy part about that tug of war is that war might bring you down and stress you out at times, right? Absolutely. Because it's like, man, like, am I doing enough? Like, can I do more? Or the flip side of that is, man, I can't do that. Like, I don't feel like doing that. I don't got enough time. I waited too long. But that internal war can feel like it's weighing you down and stressing you out. But the reality is that duality and that quote unquote struggle is really like the engine in the soil for personal growth, right? Like that battle that you deal with allows you to really challenge yourself and really, look really deep within to ask yourself, is this something that I really want? Like, do I really want to be over there, or am I fine with where I am? Right. That's an ongoing battle. And like said mentioned, growth is continual, right? It should be continual. You never really should be content, right? You can be happy with where you are, but you shouldn't necessarily be content. You should always be working and striving for better, right? But yeah, that tug of war analogy, I think is great in explaining that duality where you pulling, right? And it's like
Right.
the work you choose to put in will dictate and determine who wins that tug of war. You know what I mean? Like if you don't want to put that work in, then that lazy side of you, right? That pessimistic side of you is gonna win, right? But if you are willing to dedicate some time, some effort, utilize some resources, get your hands dirty, then that optimistic side, right?
Yeah.
That goal setting and hard working side is gonna win. So very very good analogy.
Absolutely. And I feel that from the foundation of challenge is where your best version can thrive.
Yeah.
Right? When you're willing to be challenged and get out of your comfort zone, that's when you can really experience your best self. That's when you really can have those opportunities presented to you that you never probably would have experienced if you chose to stay the same. And making progress is all about choices. What choices are you making day by day? What disciplines are you incorporating into your day that's going to allow you to even be in a position to see change, to even be in a position to obtain the goal, to see the vision through, right? Because many people, they choose to stay with routine because sometimes routine is not very risky.
Yeah.
You get into this repetitive nature of doing things every day and you wonder why you're still in the same position or you haven't made any progress. It's because you're not taking risk.
Yeah.
It's because you're not putting yourself out there to even experience something exceptional, right? You're comfortable with just being as is. It's like the status quo.
The status quo, yeah, or average, right?
Yeah.
Or I should have said mediocre, right? And that's where the term average comes from, right? Because most folks are either that or below. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And that's what really separates the successful individuals from the I don't want to necessarily say unsuccessful, but you know what I mean, it is what it is.
And it just depends too, because obviously, yes, if you're wanting to thrive and experience something that you never experienced before as it relates to success, you're obviously going to have to make certain changes within yourself to even get to those points. You can't believe that if you stay how you are, that everything that you've envisioned and everything that you've thought about is going to manifest and materialize. That's not going to work. But you have to be willing to challenge yourself. You have to be willing to take risk. You have to be willing to do whatever it is that is necessary to experience change in all facets, in all areas of life. Because without challenge, I believe there is no change.
Yeah, and challenge is very important, man. And in a way you can challenge yourself is by incorporating different strategies, right? And when we talk about that duality and dealing with that internal conflict, there's a couple different things that you can really do and strategies you can incorporate to help you, in that fight and to kind of move forward, right? And that can really kind of be summarized into three different things. So the first one is like introspection, right? The second one is incremental changes, and then the last is persistence. So if we break those down, right? So with introspection, right? So important to take an introspective look at your challenges, right? So a really deep look at at where you're having challenges and where you're really kind of fighting and battling with yourself, right? And then recognize the disparity between where you currently at and where you trying to get to, right? And now things won't happen overnight, but it's important to acknowledge, like, okay, this is what I'm currently doing. This is what I would like to be doing. Very important first step, right?
Yeah.
And then next on that list is incremental changes. So, like, what does that mean? So, once you've acknowledged that disparity, you got to ask yourself, what are some aspects of your life that you can change so that you can move toward where you're trying to go, right? And then you need to implement those changes, right? Like as soon as possible. And they don't have to be major changes. They don't have to be extreme lifestyle changes. It can be small things, right? It can be going to bed at a certain time. It could be waking up at a certain time. It could be eating a little less of this or doing a little more of that, like whatever the case may be. But make sure you're changing something, right?
Yeah.
And then the last on that list is persistence, right? So that persistence is basically doing that thing over and over again, and regardless of what's going on in your life, you're going to continue to make changes and implement those incremental changes to improve and work towards where you're trying to get, right? And with that persistence, it requires discipline, accountability, and probably the most important, patience, right? Because nothing happens overnight. You know what I'm saying?
Not at
So
all.
like you gotta be patient, right? And have, as we talked about last week, a system in place where you can measure results, right? Because that's how you can remain calm and, like, feel like, okay, I'm not doing all this work for nothing, right? Because you will be able to look and see, like, okay, it doesn't feel like it, but I've did this, and this. Like, I'm this much closer to the end goal. Like, I'm closer to the goal now than I am to where I started. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like, so
Absolutely.
so so you gotta have some sort of, system in place to measure that progress, though. But just to kind of recap, though, like, right, some, like, so those strategies is introspection, incremental changes, and persistence, right? And then really I could throw patience in there, but those are the three.
And all those are highly necessary. And I feel like you can't have one without the other.
Yeah.
All of them will need to be done simultaneously. And there's a quote that I read recently, and it was basically saying that you can often be resistant to staying the same, but reluctant to make changes. And what that meant to me is you may not want to stay the same, and you're resistant to stay the same, but you don't want to make changes. And what you were talking about with those particular strategies is change is a requisite.
Yeah,
That
no,
has to be
absolutely.
something that you're willing to do, no matter how uncomfortable it is, no matter how much time it takes, no matter
Or
how it
how
makes you
or how cool everybody tried to make. Oh, I didn't change. Like, nah,
right.
bro, you need to change. You
You
need
need
to
to
be
change.
changing.
Right, absolutely. And many people make success look like it's an easy thing to obtain. It's hard as hell. Period.
And it's crazy because I think two things can be true, right? I think it's hard, which is why, because if it was easy, everybody would be successful, right?
Right.
But then at the same time, I feel like it's not as hard as people think,
Yeah,
right?
that too. Yeah.
Like, so I think those two things are true at the same time.
I absolutely agree. And I feel it's less challenging when, as you said, you have strategies, you have systems, you have habits, you have processes, you have things that contribute to the goal where you can measure how much progress you've made over time. And when you do that, what it does, it gives you confidence.
Yeah.
It allows you to look at something not from a very short term perspective, but you're able to look at it long term. You're able to see your small wins, your gains that you've made gradually. It's like when you're working out. If you've never worked out before and you're just getting into working out, you're not going to get in the gym and see change immediately. That doesn't happen. Like if you want to get stronger on your bench, like my boy E over here benching 275, if you want to get stronger on your bench, it's not going to happen in 2 days. No, you're going to go in consistently. You're going to be persistent, even on the days where you don't want to work out. You're going to get up. You're going to work out because you know what the goal is. You know where you're wanting to get to. You know that you're not comfortable with where you are and the gains that you've made. So you're willing to put in the work, put in the effort that's needed to get to that point where you see increase, where you see productivity, where you start to see results. And over time, as you see your bench go up from 215, 220 to 230 to 250 to 260 to 275, it's like, wow, I actually have experienced growth in this area.
Hey, I want to piggyback on that real quick, right? So we've talked a lot about when we've done business podcast episodes where we talk about how data is like the most important thing for businesses, right?
Right.
And really, that's like their bread and butter. That's like their gold mine, their data. If a lot of companies were to lose their data, like that's their business. You know what I mean? So the best way to think about this, right, when incorporating strategies and a system for measuring progress and all that, is just like, what is your data, right? Like you don't got a bunch of databases and Excel spreadsheets and customer numbers and all that. What you have is what you do every day, right? Like that's your data. You know what I mean? And that's the most important thing to your business. You know what I mean? Being
Right.
you and who you want to become, right? So as you're incorporating these strategies and all that, and you got a calendar, and you know incorporating a schedule and sticking to that, or as the example gave, if you're trying to increase your bench press and you writing down and you keeping track, like, oh, I was able to do, I started at, I'm gonna go with some lighter numbers. I started at 135 and I was able to do that 5 times 2 weeks ago, but now I'm able to do that 8 times this week, right? So like that's improvement, right? But that's your data, right? And if you don't have that data, then your business not gonna be good. You know what I mean? Like you're not gonna be able to exactly. You're not gonna be able to improve and look back and make the necessary adjustments, right? Like think about it like this: how many times have you had an amazing idea, but you didn't write it down, and then you can't remember what it was?
Yeah.
Right? So now whatever that idea was, whatever it was you needed to do, whatever the case may be, you gotta wait until you remember it or something reminds you of it again, right? But if you would have wrote it down, if you would have took a second, put it in your phone, you could have got on it. You know what I mean? You could have incorporated it. And so it just really kind of emphasizing the importance of data and like logging things and keeping track of them and like following up, right? Like and those habits, very healthy habits to success. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely, bro. Spot on.
It was so cool. So I guess really we towards the end of the episode now, so I guess I can really kind of like sum this up to a certain degree. When we're talking about this tug of war, this battle, this duality, right? It's like, how do you get to a place where it's not so much of a battle, right? And it's you kind of working in a perfect harmony, right? Like there's not too much tension on a rope, you know what I mean? Both people kind of, let loose a little bit, you know what I mean? If you want to stick with that analogy. And I think the way you deal with that really kind of starts with like perspective, right? So like it might feel daunting, but that battle that you fighting is integral to your self-development journey. You know what I mean? Like that fight, you know what I mean? So like if you acknowledge that and you realize that, these stressors or this stress is good stress, right? And that it's gonna help you get to where you're trying to go, then that'll help you deal with it and deal with that struggle, right? Like, man, I know this is tough right now, but it's for a great cause, right?
Absolutely.
I'm walking in my purpose. Like I feel good when I check off these boxes, right? So if you have that sort of outlook and perspective on it, I think it makes it a little easier to deal with. And then also, again, to go back to the strategies we talked about, right? So using introspection, incremental changes, and persistence, right? Like if you can incorporate those, have the right perspective, right? Be persistent, disciplined, accountable, right? And patient. You know what I mean? Then you can kind of work in a perfect harmony. You know what I mean? Nothing's perfect, right? So like you're never not gonna have a life where you're not stressed out sometimes. You know what I mean? And truthfully, you wouldn't want that because then you really wouldn't appreciate the good times. You know what I
Right.
mean? So like you really need the good with the bad. And like I'm a firm believer in the law of averages, right? So like I feel like you need both. You know, like
Absolutely.
if you flip a quarter over 3 times and you get heads each time, tails is coming up. You know what I'm saying?
Eventually,
Like eventually it's gonna even out.
it's
You
gonna
know what I'm
happen.
saying? So like your life is gonna be full of ups and downs, but you just want to make sure that you're trending in the right trajectory, right? You want to make sure that you're working towards and moving towards where you want to be as you look back. And the only way to know for sure is to have the right data. You know what I'm saying? Have your
Yeah.
data. You know what I mean? Be able to know what your data looks like. You know what I mean? But yeah, you got anything else you want to add, Sid?
Man, bro, just what you just said at the end, having the right data, you know, understanding where you've come from and how far you've gotten. That's big because, as you said, it gives you a measuring stick. It allows you to see what things that you haven't done and what things you need to do and what you can continue to do to get towards the goal.
Yeah,
How can you get towards the win? It's like a championship season. You don't get to the ship unless you look at the film and the tape from the previous games and see what things you didn't do right. But also
yeah,
you look at the things that you did exceptionally well and you build off of that. And that compounds over time. And that's what we all have to do. We all have to, like you said, bro, look at the data. See the areas where we struggled, see the areas where we thrived. See the
yeah,
areas where we weren't as efficient and see the areas where we were the most effective. Take the good and the bad, and you use those things as fuel. You use those things as a measuring stick. You use those things as habits, things that you don't need to do and things that you need to do in order to get to the goal, get to the vision, and get to the win. And that's
yeah.
it, man. That's all we need. We got to
No,
have it.
absolutely, man. Absolutely. So, hey, as always, right, we greatly appreciate y'all for tapping in, tuning in, rocking out with your boys on another episode of Keep It Thorough Thursday. Or I'm saying Keep It Thorough Thursday. It's not even Thursdays no more. It's
It
just
ain't
Keep It
Thursdays no
Thorough,
more.
right? Just keep it thorough. But hopefully y'all enjoyed the episode. As always, we'll be back next week with another installment of Keep It Thorough. And a lot of changes are coming, man. Be sure to check out the website. We got a lot of updates coming with the kits. We really ain't been dropping the kits too much the last few episodes because we're in the process of updating those. But be out on the lookout for that, man. Me and Sed working real hard behind the scenes, and I've been
Very
getting some.
hard.
I've been getting some feedback from some people though. Said I ain't even been telling you, man. I've been having different
Eric been
homeboys.
chopping me up because I ain't been doing all the work that I need to do, but I need that.
No. We both got areas that we can do better. Hey,
No,
you want to, you know
absolutely,
what?
bro.
Look, and to relate that back to this episode, right? You want to know what I think is hard for most people,
What's
right?
that?
When they're working towards that goal or dealing with that challenge of where they at and where they want to be. I
Yeah,
think what's hard for most people is to be consistent.
absolutely.
Like,
Man,
like,
that's
like, 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 like that is the problem, right? Because if you
yeah,
think about everything it is you want to do, okay, like, cool, yeah, I want to work out. Most people want to work out. You know what I'm saying? Most people want to be successful. Most people want to make a lot of money. Most people want to do all these things. But it's like, okay, when you look at what it is you have to do those, people start off, right? That's why
yeah.
January, New Year's resolutions, the gym's packed.
Everybody out there
You know what I mean? But then
getting
it's staying
sexy.
consistent though. You know what I
That's it,
mean?
bro.
And that's why when I walk in that gym every day and I see them people, I got respect for them people, bro. I got respect and it's a mutual respect because we all know, bro, we be in this thing.
Yeah,
We consistent. We in here like clockwork and we see
6
the
months deep.
results. You know what I'm saying? You know, so and that's you gotta apply that to your life, man. We might get some shirts, man. Know your data, man. You know what I'm saying? Know your
Yeah.
data.
You got to, bro.
Hey, real
Keep it
talk.
thorough and know your data.
Yeah. Hey, but
Detail.
thank y'all. We'll be back next week. And as always, if you don't do nothing else,
Yeah.
keep it
Keep
thorough.
it thorough.
We out. Those.
Till next time.